If we are a business owner who would like to run our business better by better understanding financing options, better understanding loans, notes payable, and the interest related to them, or a business professional who would like to advance our career understanding the concepts of time value of money, bonds, notes payable, and how a company finances their operations, or an accounting student learning concepts related to time value of money, bonds payable, notes payable, current portion versus long-term portion of liabilities. This course will help us set up problems and learn how to work through these problems much faster. And therefore, this course is a course for us. What will we learn? We will be focusing in on long-term liabilities here, including bonds. When we're discussing bonds, we're not discussing the investment in bonds from a purchasing standpoint, as is often the case if we think about stocks and bonds as a form of investment, which they are. But we're thinking of the bonds from the issuer perspective, from the corporate perspective, as something that is issued in order to help generate some cash flow for the company's operations. So the bond then is going to have a few important dates, and there's a few important things related to bonds that are important not just to the issuance of bonds themselves, but other concepts that are key to accounting. One of those is going to be the time value of money. Time value of money is just important for any kind of decision-making process. And bonds, even if we're not issuing bonds, is really good tool to learn time value of money, because there's two types of flows, cash flows related to bonds, which are perfect for learning time value of money. Therefore, even if we don't plan on issuing bonds or being in a corporation that issues bonds, because it deals with time value of money, those are important concepts for us to have a grasp of, and bonds will be a tool for that. We'll talk about the issuance of the bond. We'll talk about how to get to the price of the bond. We'll talk about interest rates for bonds, including the stated rate and the market rate, and how those interact and how those result in consequences related to the issuance of bonds. We'll also talk about notes payable, and this is going to be more like a standard loan, focusing in on installment notes, which have a fixed payment amount typically to repay the notes. That's a typical type of installment note. And we'll go through some of the same concepts, including time value of money, how to calculate the interest. We'll talk about amortization tables, and again, we'll get into that present value with relations to notes. Note that notes, although they're more common, are a little bit more difficult to consider the present value of in some ways than bonds, because of that distinction of the way bonds are often formatted in terms of having the principal be paid back at a fixed date and the interest being an annuity format. Therefore, even if we don't deal with notes and we will deal with loans, bonds are often useful to understand present value. We're going to go through the amortization calculations for notes, and that'll help us to figure out what type of payments we're going to make and how to record normal payments on an installment note. We'll also talk about leases and what's the difference between a capital lease and an operating lease. Why choose this course? Although this course will have a lot of instructional video, we will have more than just instructional video. We will include PDF files that can be downloaded, they can be used as references, they can be used offline as guides through some of the presentations. We will also have Excel practice files. This is really where most people learn the concepts well, is through doing. And the Excel practice files will typically have at least two sheets, two tabs to them. One tab will have the answer to it, so you can go through it and actually see what the end product will be, how it's put together. The second tab will typically be pre-formatted so that you can go in there and work through the problems along with instructional videos in a step-by-step format. We'll learn a little bit about Excel in terms of just copying and pasting different formulas in Excel, relationships between cells. However, the worksheets will be pre-formatted as well, and we are focusing in on the concepts related to the topics we will be covering. We'll have practice test questions, both in terms of multiple choice questions and in short calculation questions. These will just be video presentations, but we want to go over test-taking skills and try to think about how these concepts could be formatted in short test questions. Because when we learn these concepts, we typically learn the big picture in the real world and have too much information. If we're going to be tested on this information, then the test questions will often be formatted in somewhat of a tricky way because they're trying to condense the information down into a small test question. The only way to be good at test questions is to practice test questions. So even if we're good at the material, if we want to get good at test questions, we practice test questions. And the test questions do help us to understand the material better, because by twisting things around to formats that we don't normally see in real life, we are really testing for knowledge, real comprehension. And so they are good to look at. Discussion questions. These are going to be open-ended questions, and they're similar to essay questions you might see on a test as well. They're meant to have discussion, to have more thought through these types of questions. So these are going to be questions that will facilitate discussion with instructors and other students, which is often helpful when we look at this material, because we can see from other perspectives what people think about the material. Presentation quality. The presentation qualities will in essence be this. This will be very similar to the types of presentations you'll see within the course. Many courses have very high-paid, high-level presentations to get us into the course, followed by presentations within the course that are of a lesser quality. In this course, this is going to be similar to what you'll see within the course content. Who will we be learning from? We'll be learning from a practicing certified public accountant, someone who has a chartered global management accountant designation, a master's of science in taxation, is a certified post-secondary instructor and curriculum development expert, someone who has experience putting together courses, putting together series of courses in a technical nature and or that need to be taught in some order in such a way that students can get from them what they want. Please join us for Accounting, Bonds Payable, Notes Payable, Liabilities. It will be great.